A stranger knocked on my door for 20 minutes. I'm not op. TW. Stockish. Less than. Mood spoiler. Disappointing. Less than. It was originally posted by Kimbo200 in our Let's Not Meet. A stranger knocked on my door for 20 minutes October 28, 2022. Last night, my 22F husband, 25M, woke me up at around 11:50 to tell me that someone has been knocking on our door and ringing our apartment doorbell for about 10 minutes on and off. He woke me so I could possibly ID the person. Once I looked out our upstairs apartment window, I saw the man walking to his car in our apartment parking lot. Across the street from our unit, he was wearing blue jeans and a gray t-shirt. He was a medium build, possibly 30-year-old blonde man. He wasn't covering his face or anything. But the thing is, he was carrying what looked like resistance bands or rope. He sat in his car for around 3 minutes while I was on the phone with dispatch. Then, he came back to our door and knocked hard for another few minutes. Dispatch advised me that the police were on their way, and they hung up. I started videoing the vehicle. I read out the tag number and make and model and just watched as he put his car in park and reverse. Over and over again. Out of seemingly nowhere, he backed out of the parking lot and started rushing away, but not before the officer arrived and pulled him over. My downstairs neighbor knocked on my door and told me that he had been peering into her little children's windows and was pounding on her door as well. She said that her husband had left only 1 minute before he started knocking at her door. She said he saw her children through the window and that's why he continued knocking. Our doors are right next to one another, so he probably didn't know what door he wanted open. He was watching us as well through our upstairs windows. So I turned all of the lights out and shut the blinds while I called dispatch. The police never contacted us for a statement. I've reached out the dispatch about an update, and I'm waiting to see if any action was taken. We're keeping our eyes peeled to see if he's been following us. I'm replacing my porch light bulbs with motion detectors and putting bars in our window and door tracks. My neighbor and our families are panicked, to say the least. He was outside for about 2,530 minutes. To the knocking man with bad intentions, let's not meet. Updates on same post. Update. I am trained in firearm usage, and now live in a state where I can open carry and the background check is really quick. We are going this weekend to get a firearm. My husband will be taking some classes as he came from somewhere where owning a gun is illegal. So he's never handled one. I am still waiting on a call from the responding officer. I have his badge number and name. So if they don't reach out to me tonight, he might work third shift. I will call the substation. If they didn't do anything, I will go ahead and make a suspicious persons case for the paper trail. We had no odd encounters last night. However, while I was looking at the video I took, I remember that car. I was walking my dog at 8 p.m. a week ago for him to pee. And this car was driving really slow through the parking lot and parked a few spots down from where I was letting my dog sniff. They just sat there with the car running. When I tell you my ears started ringing and I got an awful feeling. I'm not joking. I turned around and went home. Didn't give my dog the chance to pee. And shut every door and window. I think this man has been staking out our apartment building. Me and my neighbors. I think he wanted to get in where those children are. I'll update more when I have new information. Update number 2. It's been a week since the incident. I called dispatch today because I never received a follow-up from the responding officer. A sergeant from the PD called me back to give me more information. He said that they pulled over the man, ran him to make sure there were no warrants, and asked him what he was doing. He told the officer that he was meeting up with an acquaintance. The officer let him go with no further questions. Not only that, The responding officer is also a sergeant. I about lost my mind. The sergeant I spoke to today stated that he should have looked into it more. It was obviously an attempt at burglary, sexually motivated and/or with intent to commit a felony. The responding officer is supposed to call me tonight when he gets on duty. I'm livid, honestly. Zero due diligence for this case. But there's not even a case. No case number. Just a documented police contact. I'll give more info when I have it. Final update. The officer finally called me. Here's how the conversation went. Hello? I answered groggily. It was well past midnight. Hello, miss. I was told you have some questions about an incident a few nights ago. Yes. About Thursday. I wanted to know what that man told you he was doing. You know, he was looking in windows and carrying potential restraints. I'm not sure if that was relayed to you. I stopped him, ran his tags, and he told me that he was meeting up with a guy from a dating app. He seemed forthcoming and open with his motive for being there. Meeting up with he was meeting up with someone by looking in windows. Knocking on 2 different doors for 20 minutes? I was shocked, and still not fully awake. Like I said, he seemed forthcoming and honest with me, so was Jeffrey Dahmer was the first thing that came to mind. With resistance bands? Like workout bands? Quote, he had lots of belongings in his car, so he probably just had them in there. Right, but bringing them to a hookup? Knocking on multiple doors. He saw the little girls through the window. He waited until my neighbor's husband left until knocking. That's on tape, officer. I checked in with the apartment management after the incident. Well, I'm familiar with this individual, and I've been doing drive-throughs of your complex to make sure he doesn't come back. I haven't seen anything. If you don't have any more questions, I'll let you go, ma'am. Doesn't make sense to me. But thank you. Goodbye, and I hung up. I don't have much to say. I just feel so icky about that conversation. Nothing new has come of the situation. I haven't seen the man or the car. My mind is blown at the lack of follow-up or due diligence. I live in a suburb. It's not a busy one either. The PD has a small jurisdiction. Guess I'll have to protect myself. Relevant comments by OOP. 1. True. Knocking isn't illegal, but looking into windows is a criminal act. To add, they let him go. The whole police encounter was less than 15 minutes. It takes much longer if they were to detain him. That's why I'm trying to figure out who he is, what he told the officer. 2. The reason why I think this isn't the case for my situation. He was knocking on both doors simultaneously and peering in windows. He was carrying what could be used as restraints. He saw me calling 911 through our window and continued to knock. He waited until my neighbor's husband left, and then 1 minute later started knocking. I don't think he was trying to steal something because all of our lights were on. I sleep with a side lamp until my husband comes to bed. He had the living room lights and his light on in his office. My neighbor keeps her front windows well lit as well for security. Almost all other units around us are dark at night. Why pick the building with the lights on and people awake inside? My guess? He was going to rush us if we opened the door. He was knocking persistently until we got annoyed and would open it to confront him. 3. Yes. In my state we have peeping Tom laws and it is illegal to peer into windows. He walked up and put his hands on their window to look in. Here's some legal info about the PC 647. The peeping Tom law. A first offense carries a penalty of no more than 6 months in county jail and/or a fine of up to $1,000. A subsequent offense, though also a misdemeanor, carries up to 1 year in county jail and/or a fine up to $20,002. This also applies if you were peeking in on or invading the privacy of a minor. 3. To prove that you violated PC 647, the DA must prove beyond a reasonable doubt each of the following elements of the offense. You wandered, delayed, prowled or lingered on the private property of another person while you had no authority, consent or other lawful purpose to be on the property and looked into, or peeked, into a window or door of an inhabited structure or dwelling on that property. 4. Just ask my husband. He said when he went downstairs. Our front door is downstairs. And looked through the peephole. He couldn't see the man. Sounds to me like he was hiding on our front porch area. My neighbor's door is right next to mine. They told me that they didn't answer because he was peering into the little children's windows. Reminder, I'm not the original poster. It is odd the dispatcher hung up on the OOP when she called. It's pretty normal practice to have the caller stay on the phone until the police arrive on the scene to make contact. He seemed forthcoming and honest. Oh, I get it, he was not a racial minority. Well, I'm familiar with this individual, and I've doing drive-thrus of your complex to make sure he doesn't come back. I haven't seen anything. If you don't have any more questions, I'll let you go, ma'am. And there it is. The cop knows him, so he couldn't be bad. And when this psycho ends up breaking the law, nothing will happen to this awful cop. He'll just say, I never knew him, or, wow, there were no signs. Despite plenty of reported signs. And this is why a lot of people don't bother calling the police. Either they let them go because they don't look suspicious, or they use their status as an officer to let their friends and family go. He is scum. So is that creepy man. The OOP needs to call the local news and tell them this story. Cops. They're so helpful. Whatever would we do without cops? Exclamation mark. Sounds about right for the police. They tried to get me and my husband and kids to go down to the station one Christmas so our stalkers could give us presents and give my kids an extra special Christmas. I seriously looked at these men for a second and said, we have a file at the station because my parents have been stalking us since we went no contact. They have harassed us, and the reason they aren't on our property is because they know it would be trespassing and we would have reported them. They asked if they were abusive. I was shocked. I told him yes. My dad had been violent with both me and my husband in the past, and we were concerned about violence. Hence we were no contact. We were told to lock the door and call if my parents showed up. They have come by 2 or 3 times for false wellness checks. 2. Despite having a file and knowing it is abuse of services, they haven't charged them because they see them as old people who miss their grandkids. They aren't. They are monsters. The reason they can't see my kids is because my mother threatened to lie to CPS and claim my PTSD made me an unfit mother. Why? I was only going to be able to visit with the kids for 2 days instead of 3 because my kids had a birthday party. I was a terrible daughter for not putting my mom first. I was a terrible mother for letting my kids have too many friends. As soon as she made the threat, I was done. When I was a kid and she would abuse me, if I ever said I would tell, she would say, go ahead. They will put you in a foster home where you will get raped every day and then you will beg to come back and will have to consider it. And she was putting my kids at risk because she didn't get her way. No one threatens my kids and gets to be in their lives. I used to think I could protect them from the bad parts. You shouldn't have to protect your kids against people who should love them. I left and I won't go back. It is scary because I know the police won't protect us. I have camera, a security system, and locks on different doors so I can hide if need be. The police are useless in situations like this because it would mean actually having to do some work. Well, I'm familiar with this individual, and I've been doing drive-thrus of your complex to make sure he doesn't come back. I haven't seen anything. If you don't have any more questions, I'll let you go, ma'am. In other words, he creeps on women and children and attempts to break in regularly. And he's been talked to repeatedly. But this ass of an officer thinks it's no big deal since he hasn't hurt anyone yet, and besides, people shouldn't be so sensitive. And anyway, doing something would be work. I am both incredibly angry and creeped out by this post. Dispatch usually doesn't hang up until police arrive, right? He couldn't have been black. Cup with straw. Well, I'm familiar with this individual. Ah, so the cop knew him and that's why nothing happened. Good old boys club. Rapist behavior would seem normal to a cop. The cops did nothing? Shocking face with rolling eyes. The other day, a man waited until my husband left and started ringing my doorbell, disconnected, and was looking at our planters and signs. Gnome sign. He left when the dogs started barking at him. When I called the police, there were police cars up and down my road within 5 minutes and one parked outside my house for 20 minutes making sure he didn't come back. It's scary out there. For op. I'm surprised, but not really. The cops just let that guy go knowing all that info. I would file a report about that, Sergeant. I am trained in firearm usage, and now live in a state where I can open carry and the background check is really quick. Op tells us they live in Texas, without saying they live in Texas. Of course they let him. He has the complexion for protection. ACAB. Is this in Moscow, Idaho? It always seems so hard to do anything in the case of stalkers because it's just difficult to pin something actually concrete on them. It's horrific the way they can destroy people's lives and sense of security and get away with it. Reddit seems to remind me, on a daily basis, that people who have rarely, never interacted with law enforcement seem to carry a whole package of wildly inaccurate notions and expectations regarding the police, i.e. what they are, what their purpose is, what their motivations are, etc. It's as if most of those privileged enough to not have to worry about the police have just taken what they were taught growing up about the helpful policeman and carried it on straight into adulthood without ever questioning it.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.